So, busy weekend here. Wanted to get this up a little earlier, but wasn't around to do so. But today we're taking a look at a few new things pertaining to Battlefield 6 and an interview done recently with IGN about the game's upcoming release. Now, overall, it was a rather insightful interview, dropping details on topics that are actually really nice to hear about and gain insight for. But there's one key portion that everyone was talking about that unfortunately kind of overshadowed a bit of the other good information to come with it. So, today we're taking a look at all of that and what you need to know. So, drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Battlefield 6 as we gear up for the launch here in just a couple of weeks, along with other FPS content. We've got a super busy fall with multiple game launches this year that I'm stoked to share with you guys, but for now, let's get into it. So this interview with IGN covered a few high-level topics: leaks, cross-play options, anti-cheat, and cosmetics primarily are what we're going to talk about here with this. So as for the leaks, it's been an elephant in the room since Labs started that something was going to leak out. You can't give the game to this many people and expect everybody to adhere to an NDA. Now legally, they should be, but obviously people haven't done that. I'm sure just like terms of services, a lot of players probably scrolled right past all the details there and hit accept so they could play in Labs. But when asked specifically, how does EA feel about the leaks for things like Battlefield Labs? Did the team go to any length to try and tighten the lid? To which Christian Bull, technical director for Battlefield 6, mentioned, "I'll start by saying we did not want leaks, but we also knew that the most important thing was to get player feedback through Battlefield Labs, right? We had actually discussions, I think about a year or two ago, about how much we were going to prevent leaks versus how much we were going to do to try and get the game in front of players. We made a very deliberate decision that we were going to bias very heavily towards putting things in front of players and getting their feedback, even though we knew things would leak. I remember at one point making a big presentation that said, what will leak? Everything. Like, we just started with the assumption that things would leak. Now, to be clear, we didn't want things to leak. We weren't seeking leaks, but we knew the most important thing was to get the game in front of players, get real feedback from players, get real telemetry, real data, and that had to come at any cost, including the fact that things would leak. So, frankly, I like this and like that mentality. I think that's a healthy way to go about the discussion of these sort of things that do happen. Labs, I think, has been a crucial part of the lead up to Battlefield 6. I personally think, and perhaps become such a success that other studios and publishers may follow suit in the future, a way to build a game with your audience's feedback in mind, regardless, again, of those leaks. Like GTA 6, of course, never gonna happen. But like Call of Duty or something, where every single year, you know there's gonna be a Call of Duty. People are gonna have complaints about what's being showcased, but by the time it's revealed, it's already way too far into development for really anything to be reverted or any substantial changes to be made. Like a year or two of a Black Ops or next year's Modern Warfare 4, we know these games are going to be coming, so I think valid feedback and application of it is much more valuable than pretend to be shocked, oh my god, another Modern Warfare game, or something like that. Personally, I think it's appreciated that they put aside that sort of need to control everything leak-wise and just were like, nah, screw it. We value the feedback more than anything else. Let's build this game based off of what players want. So as a starting point, I can definitely appreciate that mentality and how everything has happened thus far for Battlefield 6. Now, the next two topics of crossplay options and anti-cheat kind of go hand in hand with each other because, of course, right now, it is something that the topic of PC and cheating is definitely something that the last couple of years, I feel like especially, has kind of springboarded into a much larger discussion than just the segmented discussions of when it might have just been like the PC population only affected by things. But crossplay, obviously allowing everybody to play together, has brought that discussion to the forefront for a lot of different titles. On the topic of anti-cheat, they said they're taking a lot of effort, putting a lot of work into prioritizing fighting against cheaters. They said they've turned on Secure Boot, they've got Javelin, the new anti-cheat system there, which is required to play, and they have EA's own anti-cheat teams as well. They said Battlefield has a dedicated team to anti-cheat, which includes engineers, analysts, and others who are reviewing things and banning players and figuring out what the latest cheats are. They also mentioned they have EA's anti-cheat team to work closely with. So while acknowledging they're never going to win against cheaters, it's always this cat and mouse game, they said they're being extremely aggressive and they know it's crucial to the success of the health of the game. So while they have these things that are sort of trying to mitigate things in real time and combat cheating on a top level, they also are going a step further with crossplay options. Again, that big sort of catalyst for why this discussion in the last couple of years has become something so large as it is now is because everybody gets affected by it now. So a lot of players the last couple of years are like, well, I'd love to just take PC out of the equation, or if anything, just turn off crossplay, which limits your play potential, but of course mitigates the majority of the issues you may have surrounding that topic. Now, they mentioned crossplay will be on by default when a player loads into Battlefield 6 for the first time, something that players should be aware of, but if you turn off crossplay, that will actually limit your player potential pool to PlayStation and Xbox communities, meaning that crossplay off is still going to allow you to have some crossplay functionality, but just taking out that portion that seems to be the most problematic, historically speaking. So, frankly, I think that's a good way to go about with that option. Obviously, as a PC player, I would love to end up having the easiest time getting into lobbies, but I fully recognize that a few bad apples here and there ruin the image and experience for everybody. So I personally see no issue in terms of giving the players the option to shut out one platform versus completely getting rid of crossplay altogether. But that's just me. Now, let's talk about the point of this interview that actually was, again, the thing that overshadowed basically everything else about it. IGN asked, the Call of Duty team appears to be backing away from including goofy skins with this year's Black Ops 7. It's, I feel like, all anyone can talk about, even in the Battlefield community, because you guys have, conversely, doubled down on gritty realism. How does it feel for the team to see other shooters backtracking from the goofy aesthetics while Battlefield sticks to its guns? Does it feel like the commitment to a more grounded shooter experience is paying off so far? To which Christian Bull said, I think we're really happy with where we are. We want to be a gritty, realistic shooter. Other games can and should be whatever they want to be, right? While laughing, he said, like, we're not, I don't know, Fortnite is pretty goofy, and that game's pretty good. So I think where we end up is we're pretty happy with where we are. We are a gritty, grounded, realistic shooter. That's what we intend to be, and that's what the game is going to look like for a while. Now, for a while, filled a lot of players with, like, immediate dread. However, if I can play devil's advocate, I think the recent comparisons are just naturally gravitating towards the sheer absurdity of what Call of Duty is in the last year or so, where they're like, they're gonna ruin it this way. And I think that's a fair worry to have. However, even what I consider to be the worst offenders in Battlefield in recent years have been predominantly still rooted in operator tech. Like, yeah, we had Santa skins and a couple of other things that were odd choices in 2042. There were the central unit skins and other stuff like that, but there definitely are outliers. But I think for the most part, you have stuff that will have pops and flashes of color, or an element that is wacky at most, but not full-on things like a Stan Smith, Roger, Beavis and Butthead, and all that kind of stuff that completely breaks the immersion of, at the worst, an entire aesthetic cohesion from a 3D game to a 2D animation game. Like, I'm absolutely all for calling that stuff out. Never been one to care much about skins, but like, the entire core aesthetic of Black Ops 6 just deviated where you had two entirely different game design looks. That's what annoyed me out of the Call of Duty camp this past year. If we get to that point, absolutely, I think that we are right to be pissed about that. I think that it's a rightful worry to have that maybe they push that far. But right now, when references of the 2042 cosmetics we see right now being the blueprints are there, I want to make sure that line is drawn in the sand, but at the same time, I don't want to just throw out all the goodwill we've seen so far for Battlefield 6 thus far. Like, I think it's important to know that the thing that was immediately following up this last quote that everyone took and ran with is that Matthew Nickerson, senior console combat designer, said from the design side, we are aware of what other products are doing, but we're really focused on what works for Battlefield at the end of the day. We're not chasing trends, we're not chasing other products. I think a perfect example of the skins that we're still committed to releasing is the Road to Battlefield 6 event that's going on in 2042. Those are 30 premium skins that will give a player a taste of what more is to come when we talk about cosmetics in the Battlefield 6 product line. Generally, I think from a design perspective, we're doing us. We're staying in our lane, doing us at the end of the day. When that's the mold, I think right now we voice our concerns. You make it known, you don't want anything too crazy. Hell, everybody's reaction to this, I think, is something that we should be doing. I think that we should be drawing that line in the sand and then vote with the wallet if the time comes. If the time comes. It surely seems like Battlefield 6 and those in charge of it do realize they've got pretty good ground to make up with player sentiment, and everything to this point has been pretty well received for the most part. So damaging that goodwill, I would imagine any sane team with that focus as a core tenet would understand that there has to be that hard line in the sand you don't cross. And if you want to do collaborations and stuff, there are things that do logically and thematically make sense with Battlefield. Not doing things like a Beavis and Butthead or crazy stuff like that makes zero sense aesthetically speaking. But again, it is a valid concern. I don't want to say I'm discounting any of that kind of stuff. I'm not looking to be like, hey, we're all wrong here, this is what they actually mean, because we don't know. I mean, it could be something that was a Freudian slip, not the best choice of words, or they could be hinting at things getting crazier down the line. I hope we're all wrong, and I hope that this is something that is taken out of context, but right now, there's no confirmation that that is the case. So right now, I do think that we should realize there's a little extra context to that, but also absolutely make your concerns known. So in that perspective, that's kind of all I got here on the subject with this. That was what was said. That's what we learned out of this IGN interview. Again, some cool things that are pretty insightful to the core design and gameplay feel of Battlefield 6 upcoming that I'm looking forward to still checking everything out in its entirety. And fingers crossed they don't go back on their design intent for a gritty, realistic perspective in that design. Fingers crossed. But anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of this interview? Do you guys like any of the stuff we learned about here out of this? Let me know. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. Of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing running all things Battlefield 6 and even more FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Modest Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.